With Hopkins back among them, he reveals most of the research he's been working on relating to Doma has been destroyed by the organization, them burning his house down. But enough connections have been retained in his memory to reveal he's managed to connect them all the way back to his prior research pertaining to Atlantis. This thus invokes most of the legendary lore about Atlantis as well, and how it was a utopian power whose fall came about due to the pride of its rulers. In this case, clearly adding the factor of summoning the Orichalcos god that led to their devastation. Its survivor then manipulating events through history to try and rebuild and retain and learn from its forebears' knowledge, only for it to lead to naught but bad. More artifacts pertaining to Hopkins' research still exist in Florida, with them trying to bum a ride from Seto because with them all in the Doma mess together, any information they may find is also to Seto's benefit, considering how he's also investigating Doma to save his company. It's a far more logic rationale, and treated with dignity all around. Right up until we get up to an infamous hilaribad scene of Seto overreacting to hearing Yugi lost.
ふざけるな! あのデュエルタワーで貴様に預けたデュエルキングの称号をどこの馬の骨ともわからぬ相手に奪われたというのか!
And even here, this is dealt with in a more dignified way. With Seto's overreaction, however, that route to their travel is closed, so they have no choice but to take a train, with phantom occupants that disappear not long after it sets off. If this is the night train to Mundo Fine, I'm out of here. No, it's the return of series antagonists in Sector Haga and Dinosaur Ryuzaki. Ryuzaki and Haga have, to this point, been dragged along as comic relief in this arc, but the reason why now begins to come into focus. All season long, their sole quest has been in the pursuit of rare cards, drunk on sight of the powered scene of the Egyptian god cards, and other Battle City finalists in comparison to its other competitors who outright devastated them. Thus, in the face of that, it's completely unsurprising, after being crushed by Doma and being witness to more duels with their members, that they decide to approach them in hopes of finally outclassing them, and Doma gives them exactly what they always wanted. While for dub-only viewers it may seem again as character assassination to make them do this, I ask again of the 4Kids variant, what character arc? Now, Ryuzaki's clearly ended up being duped by Haga's promise of power into taking it this far, and as the flashback shows, Haga's been nothing but a bad influence on the guy. But as I've made clear with the previous appearances of Haga, this is 100% within his wheelhouse of previous actions. For Ryuzaki, it's more in the wake of feeling his own worthlessness in the face of total loss in both the Duelist Kingdom and Battle City tournaments, when previously they were the regional champions of Japan, only to be tossed away like yesterday's news. Like with Atem, their fall is a result of arrogance and pride, but unlike them, their fall is a result of it being crushed over a longer period, to the point they've become desperate for any shred of power they could claim. While Haga was always a wormy little brat, it's another tragedy for this to happen to Ryuzaki. As before, he wasn't a bad person, merely one out for himself whose biggest failures came from a lack of thought and sticking around Haga. Jounochi, once more far from the idiotic dumbass the dub turned him into, has the good sense to call out Ryuzaki's own personal pity party over the humiliation he suffered as what it is. Egotistical arrogance and a refusal to accept their own failings to move beyond them, as he has had to again and again in the face of his own defeats, which forms the backbone of their duel, with Ryuzaki's former Red-Eyes Dragon being the key to its prior owner's defeat.
Ryuzaki, お前、確か前にも一度魂を奪われたことあったろ。でも、また元に戻れたんだ。だから俺はお前を助けるためにお前を倒す。
Showing once more that the entire reason he lost that dragon isn't anyone's fault but his own. And even here, Haga shows himself as the more openly malicious one, taunting him with the possibility of returning Yugi's soul, with that insecurity thus distracting Atem enough to fall into all of Haga's obvious traps, duplicitous tactics, and taunting.
あんねくせに正義のヒーロー面すんじゃねえなんて全然言うつもりなかったんだ心の闇に身を任せてオレイカルコスの結界を使っちゃったお前は俺たちと同じじゃないかよおまけにそんな自分の傲慢さのおかげで大事な相棒まで失っちゃってさ震えてるように見えるのは気のせいかな
And when he tries to use Timaeus, it fails completely.
ティマイオスは俺を見捨てたのか
Well, yeah, did you not read the card text? It can only be used with Dark Magician monsters to summon fusion monsters that have Dark Magician as a listed material on them. However, just when Haga would have had him dead to rights, he twists the knife, pretending to have Yugi's soul, and in faking him out to make Atem believe he destroyed it, instead of breaking him as he intended, hits Atem's berserk button. Throw him from the train.
覚悟しろよこのムシアカーソウル実はモンスター以外のカードが出るまで攻撃力1500以下のモンスターは追加攻撃でドロモンスターカード
He's already dead.
And I have to say, while I love Dan Green, Yugi and Atem's Seiyu far more carries the emotion of how broken he is emotionally inside over everything that's happened, as does the music accenting everything. Of course, Darts is simply using them, not seeing them as true members of his cult, but, like everyone else, as trash which could at best remove their opponents burying the dragons, and at worst act as more food for their god. As, with good villains, even when they may lose, they still win. The train derails, and, as a side of the bigger narrative issues surrounding this arc, they somehow survive, running the spirits named Ironheart and Chris, who unbeknownst to them are connected to the whole mess with Orichalcos. And this part of the plot makes absolutely no sense with how they come out of nowhere, when at the time Atem and Anzu were in the middle of nowhere, and their sole purpose being to just rush through Atem's guilt arc without him actually learning a damn thing. I mean, they do explain it a bit more than in the dub, that the region they found themselves in is the resting place of restless spirits and unsent souls, so there is validation of why they exist there. Though considering that this is far from where Atlantis would rest, why they'd manifest there is baffling. But not so much their trial of the heart amidst these lands, which is Atem's shortcut to confronting the darkness within his own heart that lost him Yugi. And doing it in arguably the most harsh way he could. Forced to face the consequences of his own pride by facing Yugi himself. Like I've said, Yugi is the light that draws Atem out of the darkness he's been drowned in for so long, so without his presence he has no idea what he should be doing. What is the line between a right and wrong decision? Just as Yugi's made Atem live his own life for him when he would be consumed by insecurity, Atem's relied on Yugi to be his conscience, to keep him from going too far, and now he no longer has that. All he has is ruthlessness and pride, the same thing that cost him everything. The same things he's afraid, if he ever regained his memories, may have been what cost him his kingdom in ancient times.
プライドにこだわっていざとなれば自分の考えだけを貫こうとするでもそれじゃダメなんだたった一つの価値観なんかで人の心は割り切れない人の苦しみや悲しみは絶対に見えてこないみんなが苦しむ悲鳴は聞こえてこないけど今の君じゃ誰も救えない自分が傷つくのを恐れているだけの臆病者の君にはね
And what have I been saying about Atem all this time? The Doma arc really is calling up a consistent failing of Atem as a character. What Atem has lacked all of this time is the ability to empathize with others. And the only way he can regain that is facing a reflection of the one he's closest to in this world. The only one he would ever falter against.
もう一人の僕どんなに苦しくても迷わないで絆を信じて君は一人じゃない
Even though that is the exact wrong lesson he needed to learn from this, as having too strong a resolve is exactly what got Atem into this situation.
俺じゃない真のデュエリスト相棒お前の方だったんだ
Again, that's what I have been saying! With the trial passed and the darkness confronted, Dark chooses to send Orichalcos' soldier after Atem, them being one of his servants in the ancient conflict, and with it, an invincible monster. The spirits occupying the land sending Atem visions of the Atlantis conflict's final battle, giving Atem his first sight of Darts, and him blinding Timaeus. Huh, that more explains why the Japanese name of the card is the Monocle of Timaeus. My guess is Critias lost a fang and Hermos a claw, the cards thus being reflective of calling upon them with invocation of the missing pieces of themselves. Still, Ironheart and Chris were there. They were actually members of Darts' family opposed to his insane worship of the Orichalcos god and fought against him. As the vision ends, returning Timaeus to him, which allows Atem to regain the card's acknowledgement and completing this dumb trial. With that, we get back to addressing Mai and Valen. And Mai is starting to become, well, crazed over her win-loss record, to say nothing of her continuing irritants at Valen for interceding earlier. Though what's more irritating is Valen is the exact same as Jounochi in relation to her. Same attraction, same ultimate lesson, and yet he's fed Mai delusions that she can stand on her own in isolation and power, though now wants to be with her romantically. Be a bond with others and value bonds, when that is the exact thing he and by proxy darts severed and poisoned to get her on their side. It's astounding he doesn't see the problem with her, and why she was even tempted by their power to begin with. They turned the idea of connections to others into something that's cancerous in order to take advantage of her trauma, and how that's now making her actions entirely self-destructive, when that in their entirety was the freaking point of them doing that in the first place. Really, this is where the bigger problems of the arc start to appear, and how they choose to resolve the conflicts of character first presented earlier. Instead of allowing the antagonists to have a valid viewpoint with a flaw to them that must then be pointed out or refuted, past the midpoint of the arc, they then start to become more straw men, or the result of some crazed fixation. First with the Atem trial, and now with the relationship between Valen and Mai. Valen we've not addressed before, as this is the only point where he even begins to have a character with his attraction to Mai and street brawling tendencies. And really, of the antagonist cards this season, his armor monsters are the only ones I actually wanted to see made real cards, as they're just freaking cool. Especially how they're first shown to be used in a duel with the Toge and Rebecca, as despite the pair using monsters I was playing at the time, they lose badly. Both of which whose names make an insane more amount of sense than just Luster Dragon and Luster Dragon number 2. Seriously, why did they change those names? But regardless, any deck that can just reflect the damage from attacks like this is one I want to see enter the game, especially without Valen used it to equip them onto itself. How cool is that? Over with Kaiba, Imelda takes over the corporate airliner the brothers are flying in. What happened to the Blue Eyes White jet? And through all the power of Orichalcos, gives Seto visions of the war in his homeland, making him connect with a small group of kids caught up in things whom Imelda knew. This based on his own memories of the tragedies Kaiba Corp once facilitated. However, what was likely meant to break Seto's resolve only strengthens it, because this is exactly what Seto sacrificed for to stop, to prevent, with his actions, dethroning Gozaburo and dismantling the man's military machine, sacrificing his own smile in the name of all who lost theirs, all in the effort of building a more prosperous future, which Imelda also desires. But we see through his more extreme means and directed at one on the same path. Imelda's words do not and have never fallen on deaf ears. But here, we see him commit the same hypocrisy he accused Seto of earlier. His deck is now filled with machines, weapons of war, things he should despise more than anything in the world due to what they took from him. It's like, what are you trying to prove at this point? What are you fighting against? It now becomes no different than you continuing the war that made your life hell, just in another form, and with any convenience that draws your eye, seek to sate that desire. Imelda is exactly what Atem accused Seto of being, but I have always said he was wrong about, as Seto's desires were always targeted to goals and challenges to overcome, and while he may have fixated on them, it was never to the exclusion of anything else. Thus, Seto's duel here shows how much he has grown beyond himself, beyond Gozaburo's teachings and actions, and all shown with a calmness and serenity befitting the most majestic of dragons.
全人類を滅ぼしてか。ああ。
つまり貴様が弟や両親を殺されたように世界中の人々の親兄弟を殺すということだな。
もう一度ゼロに戻ってやり直すんだよ。
もし貴様の弟が生きていてもか。
ミルクを殺しておいて何を言う。
違う。わからんのか。弟を救えなかった。その一点で貴様は負けているんだ。アメルダ、もし俺が貴様だったら絶対に弟は死なせなかった。どんなことがあってもだ。そんな奴が世界をリセットするだと。それこそ負け犬の遠吠えだ。
And it's with this that Seto shows what will bring his ultimate salvation and redemption. The resolve to keep moving forward, which absolves Imelda of his hate, and proves his words true in saving Mokuba from the tomb Imelda intended for them. Albeit with some help from the legendary dragons, which conveniently happens to be exactly where everyone else had managed to meet up. I'd call it Deus Ex Machina, but convenience seems to be one of the watchwords for this arc. Again, it's better than what the dub showed it as, but there are legitimate problems here. At this time, Seto learns that his company, despite him and Mokuba owning 60% of the stock towards it, has been bought out in its entirety by Doma, continuing Imelda's plotting because... why? I have no idea, but yeah, Seto's on his own without resources, or so he thinks.
瀬戸様。
よせ、俺はもう社長ではない。
いいえ、瀬戸様。我々は海馬コーポレーションが復活する時まで瀬戸様についていきます。
気持ちは受けておく。
And you totally believe this Seto Kaiba is someone that would both inspire and reward that loyalty in his workers. In fact, more of them have already secured the artifacts Hopkins needed for his research, only for them to also be attacked after sending it. They'll be relocating to Kaiba Corp America to use its systems to process the data. At the same time, Darts plans another worldwide attack in order to ensure the Orichalco's god's power will reach its zenith. The crystal fragments Tamaya scattered over the world in the earlier attack being used as the medium by which to summon their soldiers en masse.
デュエルモンスターズは実在する。だがそれを証明できるほど人の科学が及んでいない。
くだらん仮説だが試してみるしかなさそうだな。
Well, guess there's more signs of how Seto's become more accepting of magic. Once inside, Seto's systems process the data, revealing for the cast the identity of their true enemy, who had been unknown to them until now, but we had known, and the connection Atlantis has to Darts' organization, Paradius, which here is contextually known to Seto as the organization said to secretly control the world, and one that Gozaburo himself was fearful of, with him in turn appearing before them as an illusion.
久しぶりだな、ティマイオス。その片目はうずくか。
Dude, low blow. They escape the monsters, their attacks sadly scrapping the Blue Eyes White Jet. Fare thee well, O King of Kings, we sing thee to your rest. Valen, though, chooses now of all times to confront Jounochi, doing it in Mai's name, wanting him out of the way so she could be happy, but not realizing at all that he's the major incitement of what's wrong with her. Everyone else is held off from coming to him by masses of Orichalco soldiers that come for them. As the duel starts off, Jounochi, like Rebecca and Otogi before him, are confused by his monsters bearing 0 attack points. And why is that? Whenever we players see a 0 attack monster, we collectively go, oh crap, as it almost always means they have a crazy effect. But we get to Valen's backstory, and frankly, it's the stupid one of the trio. He was an orphan who lived in a church orphanage, until the place was bought out by gangsters, who kicked him out with the use of fire. You do realize it actually costs more to clean up burn damage, and intentionally setting your own land on fire means you're pocketing all that expense, right? Also, it is not made clear if the other residents they were kicking out were still in there when the fire was set. Regardless, Valen kicked their asses and was sent to prison over it. We also do not see his trial. And it then turns out the prison had financing from Doma, so their younger inmates, including Valen, were made to duel for their lives, Valen winning, and Darts inducting him into Doma with the challenge of facing stronger and stronger people. Really, Valen's got the weakest rationale for being among the bad guys out of all of them. Imelda witnessed his brother's death. Raphael had his family die. Valen? Ultimately, all of it is entirely ambiguous whether it's his assumption or something that actually happened. And moreover, he doesn't answer why he likes to fight others. There's no impulse for his actions beyond, he's a rough guy that wants to get with Mai. Does Mai remind him of the nun that cared for him? Hell, it actually hurts Mai's arc here as well, as it's this guy that ended up turning her to the dark side of the dual force. Yeah, he got to her when she was at her lowest point, but even at her lowest, someone like him should have been crushed by her due to how tactical she is as a player.
But hang on, surely you can't blame all of humanity for what a small group of criminals did to that church. Oh, I don't, eh? But or just f***ing hate people. I am mad at you for both activating the seal of Orichalcos and for having the most reasonable motive for being evil so far.
For as badass as Valen's cards are, they're ultimately the same strategy over and over again. Damage negation and hard impacts. Protecting a vulnerable self while inflicting it on another. As tricky as Mai can be with her harpies and to a lesser extent Amazoness monsters, she should have been able to do as well as Jounochi does against him. Granted, once Orichalcos comes into play, it's revealed Valen's variant acts more like a shadow game than the others and inflicts physical damage to the opponents, as well as emotional damage.
マイはお前とは違う。マイは俺によく似ていた。
You're practically the same freaking person as Jounochi, just less developed.
私の前に立ちふさがる者は誰であろうと倒すわ。たとえあんただろうと、ダーツだろうとね。
気に入ったぜ。俺もそうさ。勝ち続けること。それだけが俺の全てだ。
And what in your backstory showcased that? And basically that's the problem. Mine for the perspective he's shown is that though she's acted as ruthless as the rest of Doma, and acts like she wants the same as the other pawns, the desire to win and be victorious at any cost, she's constantly found that at most, shallow, and she doesn't know why. Valen's actions show that he thinks it must all be tied to her old connections, and after they're gone, she'd be free to embrace the same reckless lust for battle that he's lived in. But he can't grasp that he's not helping her at all. If anything, he's only made it worse as he's not helped her to confront the fear and trauma that's consumed her, only manipulated to fit his perception of the world, because he's just as alone. He tried reaching out to someone in trouble, in hopes they'd both struggle out of the darkness, only to drag her down with him. Hell, that's more interesting than the actual duel for the most part, as Jounochi keeps being baffled by the armor monsters and the fact they all have effectively the same ability, and the same reaction just gets tedious. But hey, at least it makes up for it with some awesome Saint Seiya-inspired imagery and freaking brutal art with just how raw everything is. But hey, it's not like Jounochi survived being attacked by God or anything, right? Though in a battle of street brawlers, it's always going to ultimately be the man who has the Fist of the Dragons who wins out, and makes them realize what they lost, or at least never had to begin with.
ようやくわかったぜ。お前がなぜJounochiにこだわるのか。あいつは俺たちにないものを持っている。お前はそれに惹かれるんだろう。デュエルに対する純粋でまっすぐな情熱。させるか、バスターファイヤ
With him out of the way, it finally comes down to Jounochi facing Mai to save her from himself, and he's just too exhausted. While she's more than ever driven by that ideal she's been indoctrinated to believe being right in the face of the one who showed it to her faltering. But the reason Jounochi continues with this self-defeating game is sometimes the only way to reach someone is to confront them on every possible level. He hopes your feelings will reach across the distance, even if it costs him his life. No, that was the title card for when Jounochi got decimated by God. And survived. Still, how the hell did that not become a meme? And sure enough it does. A reminder of their friendship beginning to falter her unquestioning resolve to only focus on battle. The true desire of her soul, to gain what she'd never had, serves as a beacon of light out of the darkness to her true self.
俺はお前が本当は優しいやつだって知ってる。自分で踏み出すんだマイ。でなきゃお前はこの先ずっと苦しみ続けなきゃならないんだぞ。
私はもう戻れない。
And yet, she can't finish it, even as he's left completely open. But it doesn't matter, as the injuries from the fight with Valen have ended up, so she wins.
'Cause I'm meant to be at peace until I die. No one's wanna be alone. I'll leave my soul by your side. Don't we fall apart between the hills divide? I will seek you all along and smile. We wisteria.
こんなことして勝ったって何もならないことぐらい。私はバカだ。あんたを犠牲にして一体何を手に入れられるっていうの。